Back in the second week of September, I took a short vacation to Hawaii with my boyfriend. The trip was very important to us because it was the only time both of us could arrange our work schedules to get off at the same time. Overall, the trip was incredibly fun and worthwhile, and we made the most of it by visiting Pearl Harbor, the Stairway to Heaven, and the Kona Brewery. We even got some skydiving in, which is something I'm very proud of myself for experiencing. We stayed at an Airbnb on the top floor of a high-rise with a spectacular view of the city, and we practically felt like we were living in our own private slice of the sky. Well, perhaps we shouldn't have felt so untouchable. On the second or third day of the trip there, we were enjoying a relaxing morning of testing the mattress. The curtains were wide open and the sun was pouring in. Our sensual bliss was suddenly interrupted when my boyfriend looked towards the window. Babe, there's someone out there." "Out where?" I turned my head towards the window, and I felt my insides shrivel away and die. There was a man with a dark tan standing outside on a platform, staring right in at us, not even pretending not to notice what we were doing. Had I ingested enough booze, I may have just laughed and waved at him, but it was too early in the morning, and mortified I hid under the covers while my boyfriend walked over and shut the curtains. Needless to say, it killed the mood. Killed it so badly, in fact, it was dead and buried about 10 feet beneath Moses. For a few awful minutes of shock and embarrassment, 1,000 questions raced through my mind. Like how long he had been out there. Was he recording anything? But most important of all, what was he doing out there? My boyfriend and I eventually made peace with the idea that he was probably a window washer or something, and we had just been unlucky. Had this been a hotel, we probably could have called down to the front desk and complained. But it was an Airbnb rental, and technically a private residence there. There was nothing we could do except laugh and shrug it off, which was exactly what we ended up doing. We eventually left the room and went about our day and had a great time, and I can honestly say I didn't think twice about the guy all day, as we enjoyed the sights and each other's company. And when we got back to the room, we picked up where we left off and had a good night's sleep. The following day, we spent some time on the beach, but instead of heading directly back to the room afterwards, we went directly up to the roof of our building to see the view and take selfies. We took loads of pictures, watched planes take off and land from the airport in the distance, and overall just enjoyed the sensation of being young, in love, and in Hawaii. That's when, yet again, the moment was ruined. My boyfriend was out closer to the edge of the building, trying to get the best shot possible of the city, and I was sitting closer to the access door, enjoying the sun and minding my own business, when I heard the door swing open, and I glanced over. The exact same guy who had been outside our window gave me a crooked smile, nodded and disappeared through the door and down the stairs, the door closing behind him before I could find my voice. My blood froze. Had that really just happened? How long had that guy been up there on the roof with us? What was he even doing up here? He wasn't dressed as a maintenance guy. And what's more, his right foot had been encased in one of those medical boots, which implied he wasn't working in any capacity. I had noticed it the other day when I made eye contact with him through the window. Part of me just wanted to run after him and grab him by the throat and ask him what the heck he was doing stalking us like that. But I'm a pretty small person, and realistically acting like that would have probably ended worse for me than him. I called my boyfriend over and gave him the rundown on what had just happened. He booked it over to the door and looked down the stairway, but the guy was already gone. What do you think he was doing? We'll report him to the security guard downstairs in the lobby. He probably lives in the building. But then we would have to admit that we were up here on the roof too. Eventually, we just went back to the room without reporting him. We locked up our door tight, and the rest of our evening passed without incident. The next morning around 6 a.m. I woke up, rolled over in bed, and tried to fall back asleep. After maybe 5 minutes of just lying there quietly, I began to hear a noise coming from the outside hallway, through the living room. I sat up in bed and listened. There was a shuffling sound, and I wondered if some building administrator was sliding something underneath the door. Then I felt the door handle jiggle, and I suddenly was terrified. Like I said, this wasn't a hotel where room service may have just mistakenly been stopping by. This was supposed to be a private residence. I got out of bed without waking my boyfriend and crossed the living room to the front door. Outside, I suddenly heard the shuffling stop, and then there came the sound of soft, uneven footsteps heading down the hallway. I braced myself, looked out the peephole, but I didn't see anything. Had the person outside heard me coming, I double-checked the locks and headed back into the bedroom. The uneven footsteps unnerved me quite a bit, because all I could picture was the prowler guy trying to get in and possibly get a closer look at my boyfriend and I in bed. Despite my unease, I fell back asleep after about maybe 10 minutes. I woke up again around 7:30. There was much more sunlight in the room. My boyfriend was awake and on his phone. I kissed him good morning and made to get out of bed. "Hey, did you hear anything weird last night?" He glanced over to me, and I saw the hesitation in his eyes. "Not last night, but I woke up about 15 minutes ago to the sound of tapping on the window." My stomach sank. I stared at my boyfriend for a moment, and then we both climbed out of bed and threw back the curtains. I gasped and I covered my mouth. There were 2 faint handprints pressed against the outside of the glass, right about the spot where the curtains were closed, which implied to me that he had pressed himself against the window and tried to peek in, possibly without any harness. Just to get a look inside our bedroom terrified me. My boyfriend and I immediately went downstairs and told security, who obviously didn't believe us until we asked them to take a look at the handprints. We told them everything about the man in the boot watching us, and even us being up on the roof. After about a 40-minute conversation with security, we left to get some breakfast, and we never saw that guy again. I'm not sure if the building's security ever found him and put a stop to it, or he just stopped on his own, but we were fortunate enough to be able to enjoy the rest of our trip without incident. We even left a shining online review for Airbnb. While I'm still slightly creeped out, I'm so glad I got to spend some time in Hawaii with my boyfriend, and I don't regret the trip at all. This guy in the boot has given me a creepy story I can tell for years. Don't let this one random guy dissuade you from vacationing in Hawaii. It's well worth the trip. I would vacation there again and even stay in the same room. But if there ever comes a day where I read online that a guy fell to his death outside that building, I wouldn't be surprised, and I won't have to look at the picture to know who it is.
My husband won't look at me anymore. He used to tell me I was beautiful. He used to smile at me with adoration. But now, it's like he can't even stand to look at me. And I feel so unwanted. Whenever I call him out, he shrugs it off or just denies it. I've even tried sexy lingerie, buttering him up with compliments, cooking his favorite meals, but I get nothing from him. I'm convinced he's going to ask for a divorce. It's becoming unbearable. I've wondered if I should just speed up the process and leave him, but I really, really love him. So I asked him if he'd be open for marriage counseling, but he refused that too. He says that the only one with issues is me. That is just a plain lie. I don't have any issues aside from how he treats me. To be completely honest, he's had plenty of issues before, and I've always come up with solutions and stuck by him. When he lost his job a few years back, who took care of all the bills? Me. When he needed surgery, who cared for him? Me. When he was jealous of other men staring at me and calling me gorgeous, who took a knife and hacked up her face? Me. I just don't understand his problem. I always do everything for him. I love him so much, but I think maybe I need to make some huge gesture to show him how much he means to me. Any suggestions?